Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name's Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, and iTunes #1 kids and family podcast, and a nominee for the iHeartRadio Best Kids and Family Podcast Award. We are so excited. We have two amazing guests for you today. First, coming to us from beautiful New Jersey, Mark Tatulli. He'll be telling us about his graphic novels. And also coming to us live from the York Book Fair, Beverly Stiffler Smith. She'll be telling us about her beautiful picture book and about the benefits of reading with our kids. We speak a lot about the benefits of reading with our kids. It brings us closer together with our kids, and especially at the holiday season. I love the fact that we have these classic holiday tales that you just read with your family. The kids look forward to reading with their parents every single year. And we have a brand new series that I think is going to become a classic in your family. Dorothea Jensen's The Izzy Elves. It's a great series. You have to check it out. Santa's 8 Izzy Elves are very tech savvy. They help each other solve problems and celebrate triumphs. And they do it all in rhyme. Start a new family read-aloud Christmas tradition with Dorothea Jensen's Tizzy, the Christmas Shelf Elf, Blizzy, the Worrywart Elf, Dizzy, the Stowaway Elf, and Frizzy, the SAD Elf. These illustrated award-winning modern Christmas stories for kids aged 5 and up are available as paperbacks, ebooks, and audiobooks at Amazon or can be ordered at any bookstore. Find out more by visiting DorotheaJensen.com. Joining us right now in New Jersey, one of my favorite places in the world. He is the author of some amazing comics that you may have come to love. He's here today talking to us about his brand new graphic novel called Short and Skinny. Please welcome to the show, Mark Tatulli. Mark, how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me on.
Excited to have you on. I have to be honest with you. It's something that I came to realize kind of late. My son loved having me read to him, started reading. I think he started reading when he was 3 or 4 years old, and he loved it. And then he discovered comics and graphic novels, and for too long, I used to push him and go, "Oh, would you please just read a book without pictures in it? Come on, dude, you're middle school and you're in high school." And I didn't realize at the time that reading graphic novels and reading comics is actually reading. And thankfully I did at some point, and I didn't scar him too much from that. But and I mention that because I think it's a mistake that a lot of parents might make, and I think it's important for us to understand that reading graphic novels is reading.
Yes, and that's certainly something that librarians have embraced too, which is really great. And they're the ones that can really reach out, and they're the people in the trenches that can really reach out and convince parents. Because you're right, it is a high road to climb sometimes with parents, because they just they're just dismissive of comics, but it's reading. And especially for boys who are traditionally, I don't want to lump them all in one place, but it's harder to get boys to read.
Yeah.
And this is a great way to get them into reading, and then it's kind of like a gateway drug to other reading.
I love that expression, a gateway drug to other reading. But it's true. It's, if we can get kids hooked on reading, what a beautiful thing to get them hooked on.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it, do you think, and that I don't want to ask you about why do you think guys don't read as maybe not quickly, but as much as girls? I mean, there's probably a bazillion different reasons for that. But what do you think it is about graphic novels that seems to attract those reluctant male readers?
What is it? I have no idea. If I could figure that one out, I'd rule the world. I have no idea. I know I can only speak for myself. When I was a kid, I loved comic books, and I especially loved the easier to read comics like, nobody knows these comics now, but it was back then. It was Sad Sack for me, and Richie Rich, and I loved those comics. It was the way I started reading. And of course, comics in the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
They're easy. And I really like comics that had no words in it.
Yeah.
But, comics with no words led to comics with words, led to reading the newspaper and reading longer form comic books, and then reading in itself. So, yeah, it worked for me. I don't know why, but that's just the way it was.
You're mentioning comics in the newspaper, and that certainly was something that got me into the habit of reading newspapers daily. And now I read them on the app on my phone, and they don't come with comics, and I kind of miss that. But I remember I have this very, very strong memory. There was a time when I was a kid, probably in the mid to late 60s, when there was a newspaper strike. I'm not sure what union, but the newspapers weren't printing. But on the evening television news during that time, they read the comics.
Right.
It was like the city of Boston couldn't survive without getting their daily dose of comics. And if they had to deliver it over the television, so be it.
Yeah, it must have. Was it a local strike?
It was a local strike, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I totally get that, because people get hooked on these characters. See, comic strips are kind of like a living thing. They're people back then, at least anyway, or even fairly recently, people read their daily comics, and so they're living with these people every day. Mm-hmm. So when that's cut off, like it was during the strike, it's like, well, what's going on in their lives? What's happening? And you got to know. Yeah. So that's a really great thing about comics in the newspaper.
Do you think it's the visual element we're able to connect easier with those characters that we actually are seeing?
Well, I mean, it's all just part of storytelling. Mm-hmm. I think that you can write and describe a scene, and that's certainly great to read, but it's always cool when, you'll have some dialogue and then you have some action that you can actually see it. And, I think it makes it, as far as I'm concerned, it makes it more engaging.
Yeah. Well, tell us about Short and Skinny, your brand new graphic novel.
Well, Short and Skinny is, let me give you a little background on it. It's, I was reading all these memoirs, these graphic novel memoirs, like, Smile and, Swing It Sunny and, Best Friends and, or Real Friends, I'm sorry. And I love them. I think they're great, and they're graphic novel memoirs, but they all seem to be from the point of view of a girl. And I wasn't seeing anything on the market that was like from the point of view of a boy. So I thought to myself, well, I got a story to tell. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I did. I started writing a memoir of myself, and it was from a difficult time for me when I was short and skinny, going from 7th grade into 8th grade. Actually, the whole entire time I was in middle school, I was short and skinny. But in 77, something special happened, and that was that Star Wars came out, and it really changed my life. It helped me to find my voice and realize that, I had something else to offer besides my physical stature, and it helped me to discover the storyteller that I was. Awesome.
Well, I certainly remember that time. I'm a few years older than you, but I do remember that time that the culture was really kind of taken over by Star Wars. It was everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. I mean, it just became, well, there was nothing like Star Wars at that time. I mean, it was a gritty time politically. There was a lot going on in the country. And there was a lot of gritty movies that were in the movies. Now, it was a great time for films, but they were all really dark kind of dramas and stuff like that. There was nothing lighthearted except for Disney cartoons, but they were like a whole other category. Mm-hmm. Back then, people considered Disney cartoons kiddie fare, know? Mm-hmm. So, but, and wasn't to be taken seriously. But I love those cartoons because you would go and you talk about getting engaged with characters. That showed me what cartoons, the real power of cartoons, those characters that you really cared about. Mm-hmm. Then comes Star Wars, which is essentially a fairy tale. Mm-hmm. It's like a live action fairy tale. It was very much like a Disney cartoon, except it was live action, and it was, the special effects were incredible, and a really, really incredible characters and story. So, and there was nothing like it around at the time. So yeah, it permeated everything. It was, T-shirts and music and everything at the time with Star Wars.
Yeah, no, I do remember. I actually remember seeing the movie 16 or 17 times.
Yeah, right. There was no home video back.
You're right. Yeah. And we didn't have the options, and there was no internet, and, and if you wanted your Star Wars fix, the only way you could get it was in the theater.
Right. That's it. And you would wait for the re-release, because I think it ran the first movie ran for like 18 months straight, and then it stopped. And then they do a re-release. You remember when they would do a release? Now in theaters once again, and they do a re-release,
Yeah.
But you had to wait for it.
Yeah. No, it was a very, very different time, and kids don't get that. I'm wondering, when kids read Short and Skinny, are they kind of amazed at the differences in culture that people experienced in the late 70s and how kids are growing up now?
That I don't know. I mean, when I go and talk to kids, the first thing I do is explain to them what the 70s were like, and what we didn't have is probably the best way to describe it. And, that we spent most of our time on our bikes and interacting together, and then, all that about the movies that we just discussed. But, I mean, that is kind of, in Short and Skinny, it's a backdrop that the real thing that I wanted to point out was, yeah, it was a different time, but middle school is middle school, and we had the same things. Every kid thinks they're different or weird or whatever, and it made what gave me the confidence to start storytelling was seeing something that I liked, that I saw that other people liked too. And suddenly I felt connected, and those things still happen today. The themes are universal.
That was a really important moment in your life when you discovered the storyteller inside of you. I bet there are a lot of kids out there, middle school kids, maybe early high school kids, who have that same kind of ability inside them, but they're looking for a way to kind of release that storyteller, discover that. How do you think, as a parent, how do you think we can encourage our kids to find that inner storyteller if it's in there?
Well, I always recommend to journal, to write down, like in a diary, and that, and write about your own experiences, because it's essentially a memoir happening in real time. But I also say, if you like a certain kind of book or certain kind of whatever in the arts, it's always okay to imitate what you see, because out of that your own voice will grow. You'll find out what, your way of telling stories, from starting or even drawing too. Like when you start out drawing, you're usually imitating other artists that you see, or other cartoonists or whatever. And then from that, your style grows. It takes years and years. But if you're interested in it, and if you're passionate about it, and if it's something that you just can't live without, it will grow. It'll just grow naturally. Yeah. But I would encourage parents to always, to keep, exposing to, read to them every day. I mean, that's something I until they don't want you to anymore, which eventually does happen. But I think it's a great experience, a great chance to revisit the stuff that you loved from when you were a kid, and then to see your own kids. They're seeing it for the first time. They're hearing it for the first time. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Charlotte's Web. It's all new to them, and it's a great experience. And they'll come to, they usually come to love books just from that experience.
Yeah. I love the idea of reading comics to kids. That, as we're talking here, I'm thinking, if you do have that reluctant reader who is 5 or 6 or 7 years old, you introducing comics to the kids, that might just be that key that unlocks their love of reading.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I absolutely think so. And, if you get to this action sequences and, there's not reading, but there's sound effects and, you can also ask them, I think that in, sequential art, there's a way of, problem solving. So they can look at it almost like a puzzle. It's like, so you tell me what's happening here. And so it's almost like a problem solving thing when you ask your kid to explain the action. and you can see if they can put it all together. So it's comprehension and problem solving.
Yeah, yeah.
In addition to reading.
Yeah, I was just thinking before you mentioned comprehension, I'm thinking that what a great way for us to help our kids develop their comprehension skills, just sitting down and using pictures and going through this exercise with kids to actually get them to slow down enough to think about what it is that they're reading or looking at and kind of absorb that.
Yep, I agree, 100%.
Yeah, one of the things too that I came to love about graphic novels and comics and was just that it opened my son up to a lot of other cultures, which was something that was important for me in our family, to have our kids be open to different peoples in different worlds and different cultures. And when he started getting into manga. And all the Asian books that you read backwards, or from the back to the front, or from our back to the front, and that just blew my mind, and that was just fun sitting down and having him teach me how to read those books.
Yeah, right. Yes, and isn't that what reading is all about? It's exposing ourselves to things. See, we all live in our own little bubbles, and we just really get. We only have this little world that we're used to, and then reading in general is about opening your world and experiencing things that maybe you'll never make it to Europe, but you can certainly read about it, and or Afghanistan or China or Japan, and a lot of the graphic novels now are reaching into those middle grade experiences. Or even the African American experience here early on in America. That stuff that it's easier to start to get into that kind of reading by seeing some of the books that are out now, some of the graphic novels. Mm-hmm.
Now you have this great career as a comic strip creator and writer, and now graphic novels. Do you prefer one of those mediums over the other?
No, I mean, they're very, very different kinds of storytelling. The graphic novel is much more long form storytelling, and I almost think of comic strips almost like poetry, the poetry version of that, because they're these short little jokes in gag a day maybe, or sometimes it's stories. And you can almost think of a comic strip almost like every comic strip every day. If you're telling a story, each comic strip a day is almost like a chapter. Mm-hmm. So they're very, very different ways. And what I like about it is it keeps me engaged, because I keep shifting over the way I'm thinking. Uh-huh. One of my strips is a Leo is a pantomime strip, which is a strip without words. So that's one way of thinking. Then I do Heart of the City, which is a scripted strip. And that's very, very different way of storytelling than the gag a day of a pantomime strip. Then we get into the graphic novel, which is much more long form storytelling, but you got to keep it moving, you got to keep it bouncy, and so I think having done comic strips helps in that. Yeah,
that's a tremendous kind of workload, or ability to put out all these different ideas in. Where do you find your inspiration?
Oh gosh, everywhere. Everything is a potential gag. Everything is a potential story. I mean, that's the way you have to look at life when I have to produce as much content as I do. I mean, there are story ideas everywhere. That's why you can't just sit in your office and look at a blank screen or a blank page. You got to get out in the world and do stuff and get around. That's where the stories come from, experiencing and being around people.
Yeah. As we're talking about storytelling, and my wife and I took a trip down to Panama, and when we came back, we were stuck in Miami International Airport, and our gate was changed 7 times at night, and so we're literally running all over the airport. Yeah. And after the first change of gates, we noticed there was a mom with a 3-year-old and a month or 2-month-old child. And she was plus all her luggage, and she was struggling to take this child and the baby and the luggage back and forth. So we came over and we helped out. And, of course, the 3-year-old was just, after 5 or 6 hours in the airport, just didn't want to deal with this anymore.
Right.
But
Sure.
I opened up my phone and I just started showing him pictures of my kids who are now adults, but just going through it and just telling stories about the different pictures. And this captivated this 3-year-old for hours. My wife is like, how in the world are you doing that? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm not going to stop because it's making him happy and it's giving the mom a chance to rest.
Yeah, and it because kids are like sponges, they're absorbing so much, and they love to be read to. They love telling, they love having stories told to them. So you did the right thing.
Well, it was the right thing for me too, because it was a lot of fun for me, and it just kind of reopened up my eyes just to the importance of story, and it's been, it's how humans have evolved. It's how we taught each other, through stories, and this idea of sitting in classrooms and listening to lectures. This is a very, very new way of learning. The story, and telling each other through pictures or pantomime. That's been something that's really brought us through the generations.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I know folks are going to want to know more about Short and Skinny and about all the work that you're doing. So where can folks connect with you online?
They can go to marktatulli.com, and that's spelled MarkTatulli.com. And you can see all the books that I have out in print. There's also a contact me section, and that goes right to me. And the website is fairly new, so it just has like a few things like like I said, the listing of my books and a bio and stuff like that. But you can contact me for any quick questions or whatever. I answer everybody.
And that's awesome. And if you have a kid that is into reading or comics or drawing and telling stories, imagine how excited they would be if they reached out to Mark and got an answer back. Talk about sparking their interest in writing and reading. That would be fantastic.
Yes, I love talking to kids. That's fine. I will answer any questions they have.
Excellent.
I've done a bunch of like school reports, answered questions for school reports and stuff like that. It's really cool.
That is great. Well, we want you to check out the book. It's Short and Skinny. It's available at marktatulli.com and on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, IndieBound, all the usual outlets. Our guest today has been Mark Tatulli. Mark, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
In just a moment, we'll be introducing you to Beverly Stiffler Smith. We met her at the York Book Expo not too long ago at York, Pennsylvania. Beverly's a former kindergarten teacher, and she'll be sharing some of her insights into what she believes are the value of reading with our kids. Before that, earlier I told you about Dorothea Jensen's brand new Christmas books, The Santa's 8 Izzy Elves. They're available as an audiobook, and if you go to audibletrial.com/respect, you can sign up for Audible's free 30-day membership, and as a trial member, you can download a free audiobook. Maybe you choose to download Dorothea Jensen's Izzy Elves with that free download. That would be pretty cool. And if not, there are over 100,000 different titles that you can choose from. Check it out today. audibletrial.com/respect. We're here at the York Book Expo with Beverly Stiffler Smith, and she's created the Naughty Little Puppy series. Beverly, the books are great, really great artwork. Tell us a little bit about the series, please.
The books are about my little puppy, Jelly Bean, who is quite a character. She gave me many great ideas for books for children that are very young, like the 3 to 6 year range.
Now, one of the things you told me is that you're a retired kindergarten teacher. Tell us a little bit, because Reading with Your Kids podcast is all about trying to inspire parents to do more reading with their kids. From your perspective as a kindergarten teacher with all that experience, what kind of benefits do you see kids getting from spending time reading with their parents?
Well, obviously, there's the connection with parents and the bonding, but it simply helps the children to develop a love of reading, which in turn helps to develop a love of learning for the future.
Yeah. I guess that's really important, that whole idea of developing a love of learning as opposed to it being a chore, something we have to do. Tell us the joy that you had as a teacher when you had that kid in your class that really loved learning.
Well, there's nothing better than seeing a child get excited about learning, and when something clicks and they take a skill and have suddenly internalized it and can do it independently. Reading simple text, for one thing. They may begin by simply memorizing the text, but all of a sudden you see them pointing to words. They're reading the words. They can recognize them in different places. They pick up easily on rhyming and pattern in simple books.
And that's really empowering for the kids.
Absolutely, because if they think they can read, they can read. Even if at the beginning they're reading the pictures, if they believe they can read, that's where it all starts.
Tell us a little bit more about your book, Sloppy Kisses. That's one that caught my eye.
Sloppy Kisses is a story about my puppy, Jelly Bean, and her journey to becoming a therapy dog. She is quite a character and can be a bit of a diva at times. We took obedience classes at the local Petco. We actually took the class 3 times because she was the only dog in the class that just wouldn't listen. So that's what the story is about. Really try and try again, and you'll get it. And she finally did.
What a great lesson for kids.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much. I wish you lots of luck. Where can folks find the Naughty Little Puppy series?
It is on Amazon. So they can find my books there.
Excellent. Hey, thank you very much. Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be our old friend, Stephanie Dreyer, also known to some people as Vig Mama. She's going to be here with her brand new book, Not a Purse. Check it out. We love Stephanie Dreyer here in the show. Next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Hey, if you are the author of a great children's book, we would love to have you on as a guest. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, it's free, and it gives you a chance to tell thousands and thousands of people about your great children's book. All you need to do is visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the contact button, let us know about your great book. We'll let you know the next easy steps. Really, really easy. readingwithyourkids.com. Hey, we have so many people to thank today. We want to thank Dorothea Jensen. Check out her Izzy Elves books at her website, dorotheajensen.com. We want to thank Mark Tatulli, and we also want to thank Beverly Stiffler Smith. And, of course, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.